want to welcome all of you to a brand new edition of Boxing 411 with boxing writer Rodney Green. Guys, before we get started and introduce the star of the program, we do have to remind everyone that this show is brought to you by FightSaga.com and Box.Buzz, B-U-Z-Z. Guys, for all the latest boxing news, please visit Box.Buzz, your centralized hub for all boxing media outlets. Also, this show is brought to you by In Rod We Trust and eXp Realty. If you're looking for a home in the South Texas area, please hit up In Rod We Trust on Facebook. Guys, but this would not be an episode of Boxing 411 without the counsel of the very wise boxing sage, Rodney Green. Rodney, how the heck are you doing this evening, brother?
Yes, sir, man. Feels good. Definitely have a good weekend. The week has been great thus far. But now we get a chance to talk about boxing. So, yeah, I'm excited once again. And like they say, let's get this show on the road, bro.
Very good, man. And I assure you, brother, we won't be talking all over each other like those two buffoons last night. Guys, if you're wondering why we're starting on Wednesday night, is because they had an estimated 100 million households across the nation tuning into that, well, I don't know what that was, Rodney.
Yeah.
I'd rather see both those old geezers in the ring, to be honest with you, man.
Yeah, that'll be a
but
good
I tell you what,
matchup right there.
Oh, that's just terrible. But guys, so we're going to talk about something a little more entertaining and enjoyable, which was last Saturday night's big pay-per-view. Rodney, I've been waiting to talk to you about this, since the event took place. First of all, what were your thoughts on the entire two-fight setup from Showtime? And oh my word, were my eyes playing tricks with me, or was that about a 7-hour program by Showtime?
Yeah, I didn't like that, to be honest. That's really one of the only complaints I would say I would have. I just hated to be tuned in for such a long period of time. And as I said, I don't speak for all viewers or the whole viewership, but, it really was kind of hard to keep my attention because, as I said, after being treated to such just a great fight for the first fight, then have to wait that extended time to see the final main event. Yeah, I didn't like that format at all. So, hopefully they can learn to tweak things to kind of make it a little bit more easier on the viewer as far as, not having it so stretched out. But other than that, I didn't really have a lot to complain or gripe at, though. I just think that that's just way too long if you're going to have that double main event. It is that's a work day right there, Joseph, almost 7-8 hours,
Yeah, absolutely. And that intermission that was supposed to be only 30 minutes, boy, it turned into a dinner break for all the guys at Showtime, it seemed. My word. Now, the only thing I can make sense of is maybe having respect for the other events that were going on at the time, which was the Lakers versus the Nuggets on prime time, right? And it was an elimination game.
Well,
and also, it was a UFC event going on, a very popular one going on at the same time. And maybe, perhaps they were pulling a DAZN and maybe pushing back the start time, which, they really should have a lot more pride and more respect for their viewers as well as their own product. They shouldn't be concerned with any other sports entertainment product. And if they did, well, maybe they should have thought about changing the date. I mean, come on now. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? To be honest with you, I'll be honest with you. At my age, brother, I fell asleep during the intermission and didn't wake up until Luis Neri was fighting.
at one point, man, I did get so sleepy, and not just because it was terrible fights. As I said, man, you get the pay-per-view at 4:30. You watch some of the fights, you begin to eat, and then it was almost like you had like a letdown. You know how you're really very excited, and you have a lot of emotion. And initially when you see something or do something or start something, but as the fight progressed, I began to fade somewhat, and I got really comfortable on my couch. And as I said, it got to the point where I was telling my son, if I miss something, call me, because I just didn't have the luxury to really enjoy the whole telecast or the whole pay-per-view because it was such a long time, and I was trying to keep my attention glued to the fight or to the event, but I had other things that was going on, which quite naturally, is understandable because, very seldom do I sit in front of any TV and watch it straight for 7.5 hours. That was a long time. So I hope they work those kinks out. I really do. And I hope they listen to the viewers and realize that it's a better way to do things. It truly is. So, those are my overall thoughts as far as that situation. But, hopefully we can get into the fight and just kind of touch on that as well. But, as a whole, I didn't really have a big issue with a variety of things. It was just more so just the length of the event that I had a problem with.
Agreed, brother. That is pretty much the only thing I took exception with. A couple of minor issues, but, yeah, no big deal. But, yeah, it was the lengthy programming. But let's go to the first main event of that brilliant doubleheader, in which Jermall Charlo scored a unanimous 12-round decision over Sergey Derevyanchenko with scores of, Rodney, 116-112, 118-110, and 117-111. Now, I can understand if you gave all the close rounds to Jermall Charlo, I can understand a 116-112 score, 8 rounds to 4. But 10 rounds to 2 and 9 rounds to 3. I can't see that.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, those are two respected judges. That just doesn't make sense to me. How did you see that fight playing out? How did you score it?
To be honest, man, I had it 7-5. I went back and watched it. I had it 7-5. Charlo. Initially, to be honest, I saw it as a draw. I mean, I thought the fight was very competitive, to be honest. But I went back and watched the fight, and I scored it 7-5. But as I said, again, 10-2 or 9-3. Man, I have a real issue with that. I truly, truly do, because both guys, took each other to the limit and showed a good representation of themselves as far as their boxing abilities. And to hear 9-3 or 10-2, it just shows you again, man, these damn judges will always be a black eye in our sport, because great fight, both guys should be able to hold their head up. But, when you have the score or the judging with such a huge, that's just, 10-2. I couldn't see it if I was blind where it could be 10-2, because, man, it was great back and forth action, and you could clearly see, both men won not just a round or two. They won several rounds if you really watch the fight. So, as I said, the judging continues to be an issue in our sport. And whoever, judged the fight and had those scores, I think now is the time to look at them, and whoever is that sanctioned body over them, tell me what you saw to make it a 10-2 round or 10-2. We need to have somebody that in the upper brass or, hovers over them with authority and say, I want to watch the fight with you and explain to me how you had it 10-2. I'm very curious because even with all the blood and that Charlo caused over, Devinchenko, no, 10-2 is just not even. I couldn't see it, in 100 years to how they came to that conclusion, though. So, as I said, man, the judging was another black eye on this event, in my opinion.
Well, at least we're both in agreement, though, that the right person got the decision. We just disagree with the margin of victory because that was almost a clean sweep. I mean, that was almost a wipeout. And anyone watching that fight, when I initially scored it, and Rodney, and the way I score fights, I was taught by several great boxing minds. And one thing they pointed out to me was that judges, including Jermall's trainer, Ronnie Shields, he was complaining to me several years ago that, judges just don't score even rounds any longer. So it's a shame that some of the uneventful rounds early in the fight will often determine the winner and loser, which isn't right. Back in the day, judges used to they weren't afraid to score even rounds, which I think if you have a huge fight like this with great consequence on both fighters' respective careers, why on earth would you score a feeling out round where maybe 2 or 3 punches are landed and about 15 to 20 are even attempted by each man? Why would you score that for one fighter over another when it was clearly an even round? It was a feeling out round. That plays a huge part in determining the winner and loser in a lot of evenly contested fights. I can't understand it.
Right.
So initially when scoring the fights, I saw 5 rounds that Jermall Charlo clearly won and 5 rounds that Derevianchenko clearly won, with 2 rounds being even. Now, if you give those even rounds to Jermall Charlo, then yes, I'm in agreement with you. I scored the fight then 7-5 in favor of Jermall. But once again, this is a real huge thorn in my side. Why on earth, Rodney, do you think sanctioning organizations as well as state athletic commissions are frowning? They're almost coaching their judges not to score even rounds any further because it seems to be a thing of the past. What are your thoughts on that? Because to be honest with you, a fight should not be determined by a lackluster round in which there's very little action.
Right. And as I said, if that's the sanctioning body's new protocol, then we're going to continue to revisit this topic. Now, I don't know why they do that, to be honest. As I said, I don't know with that type of tactic or method that it clearly favors the A side or, it may create more of a give them a slight edge, or possibly, the promotional banner who's holding the event, maybe, as I said, it makes judging the fights easier, especially for their marquee and premier fighters. And as I said, I don't say that wholeheartedly with a full vote of confidence, but as I said, we have to deal with the root of the judging because if not, we're going to continue to be back at square one. What the hell? Because when you have a bad judge or someone when someone scores it such atrociously, man, really, to even just come up with that type of number, as far as what you judge the scorecard, it really gives the sport a black eye. And as I said, why they don't judge the rounds like they previously did, it just makes you wonder. I do believe that, sanctioning bodies and promoters and A-side fighters have become so influential in the sport where, as I said, you're able to somewhat justify, or at least in your mind or at the present time, why you're going to score the fight at this, level or at this stage or whatever it may be. But as I said, man, it's just it's not a good look, and I wish we didn't have to spend the amount of time talking about it. I wish we could just come to the get on my show and just get right back into, the analysis and our thoughts of the fight. But it's important that we address this because, as I said, how many times does history have to repeat itself to where we have a good night of boxing and then we just have some horrific judging, and it continues.
Yeah, you know what? Giving these very experienced and intelligent boxing judges the benefit of the doubt, the only rational explanation I have for it, and you touched on it earlier when you were discussing the fight initially, that Sergey Derevyanchenko marks up very easily, as we've seen in his last three big fights. And so when you look at the primary judging criteria, which is clean, effective, and consequential punches landed, and also giving them the benefit of the doubt, Rodney, because you've covered many fights, when you're sitting there at ringside, you can almost feel the torque when that leather is landed. You can feel the body shots, almost like someone's beating a drum. You can feel that punch. You can feel the impact when you're right there at ringside. And so maybe that just didn't come across as well when we're watching it from our big screen on TV. Now, once again, I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt, but I think that's probably the only rational explanation I can think of, is that his punches seem to be doing the more detrimental work. Especially in the first half of the fight. I thought Jermall Charlo did an excellent job, and we talked about this potentially being one of the factors in the fight, giving Sergey Derevyanchenko something more to think about before he closed the distance and before he cut off the ring and closed the distance effectively. It's almost like he didn't really find his way on the inside until the midway point, which was, I guess, between rounds maybe 4 through 6. But once he found that real estate, it was a very, very ebb and flow type fight. I loved it. And credit to Jermall Charlo, he didn't really do a whole lot of holding in this fight. He tried to work his way out of it, either using his feet to try and create that distance or using that brilliant jab, so, mixing it up from the body, the chest, and the head. And then that left hook was really finding its mark, as well as the straight right hand. I thought he did a very good job of controlling range in the first half of the fight. And I think that had to have been the difference in the fight. Your thoughts on Jermall Charlo's game plan that Ronnie Shield wrote it up?
Yeah. One thing that became very apparent when the guys faced off in the ring, just how much the size differentiation, in the two combatants. As I said, that was a huge impediment, I think, throughout the fight for Derevyanchenko. But let's just, as I said, I want to give Jermall a lot of credit. Man, his performance, and I'm going to be honest, I had some reservations to see if he was really, truly an elite fighter at 160 that I can put in the same breath with Canelo, Andrade, Triple G. Yeah, but I'm going to be honest, man. Jermall is right there with Canelo. I think I think Andrade, and himself. So I would put I would put Canelo 1A, Andrade 1B, and I'll put Jermall at 1C. He impressed me so much the other night, man. I love how he kept his composure. beautiful jab, man. He's really starting to. I mean, his jab and his focus, man. His awareness in the ring, his reflexes. I mean, he fought a very skilled. I mean, one of the top amateurs we've seen with a pedigree like Derevyanchenko. And Jermall never was rattled, kept his calm, kept his composure, stuck to his game plan, and most importantly, man, when he got into the lines then, Derevyanchenko, he made him pay. He gave him something to think about. And I have no problem with the decision, and I just hope that, Jermall, and even in Jermall, man, they can use this recent opportunity as a platform to continue to ascend in the boxing world. But so much respect for what Jermall accomplished at, Saturday night. And to even piggyback or even give them more praise, I love the way both brothers carried themselves outside the ring. They were very humble, very, very appreciative. So that impression or the issues I had with them lately as kind of being a little bit bratty, maybe a little bit immature and childish, they disproved me all the way Saturday night. Not a lot of trash talking, but they both had the right to feel like they're the best. And clearly, Jermall at 154, I mean, I think having all the titles show he's truly the best. And Jermall's performance this past Saturday, yes, he puts him in the same tier or maybe even a little bit above than Andrade and Canelo. And I truly mean that, man. I just think he showed me so much that he would give any of them guys trouble, man, with his power and his now refined boxing ability, man. I think Rodney Shields has really improved his boxing ability, moves his feet a lot better. So all in all, man, he passed it with a flying colors. The key is what's next, though. So I don't know where he goes from here, but I would love to hear him and possibly Andrade, Eddie Herron hammer something out. And just like I paid for pay-per-view to see this one, I'll pay for that one as well.
Very well said, Rodney. And, yeah, so, guys, he's your big winner on this Fast Saturday night's first main event. Jermall Charlo stays undefeated and gets the UD12 over the very game Sergey Derevyanchenko. Now, it's funny. He impressed and scored a really big hit. I just wish that this were on Fox or a platform in which more mainstream and casual observers could have seen it. That's the only issue I have with this. Because according to what a friend of mine who I trust, he's stating that initial numbers are around 100,000 purchases, which is kind of what we projected. Now, we'll see if they eventually release that number publicly. I doubt they will. Because, they scored a big hit, and they don't want to bring down any of that momentum with a poor showing at the box office, right? But I'll tell you who else Jermall impressed with his performance, and that was 147-pound contender and former champion Sean Showtime Porter. This is what he had to say about this, and he's been saying this. He said something that you've been touting for a very long time, Rodney. You're going to get a kick out of this. This is Sean Porter's quote on his podcast recently. He said, quote, I'm proud of the Charlo twins for getting through their first pay-per-view. Jermall closed the show, but you know what? I would love to see Boo Boo Andrade fight Jermall Charlo at 160 pounds. I would love to see that fight. He said, right now, I truly believe that Charlo, if he isn't the best, he's one of the best at 160 pounds, but he's going to have to prove it by fighting one of the other champions in a unification bout. He said, with the Charlo brothers, you have to make them think in the ring. You have to make them move their feet. From what I've seen, they have problems with guys that can move, and they have problems with guys that are busy, as we saw in the Derevyanchenko fight, right? Quote, it's almost like they're a step behind every time with their reactions with guys that are busy and with guys that are moving laterally. I think Boo Boo Andrade is that guy that can move and bring that fight to you. He's probably the most rangy guy in boxing, and he's a southpaw. So there would be a lot for Charlo to think about and to prepare for if he ever gets in the ring with Andrade. He said, and this is what I think is the most interesting part, quote, I think that's probably why Jermall didn't even bother mentioning his name, because he knows that's probably the toughest fight for him at 160 pounds, end quote. Rodney, do you disagree with anything that Showtime Sean Porter had to say about his plight at 160 pounds?
Like I say, I totally concur with everything that he just said. And as I said, you're dealing with, if that fight was to materialize, you're dealing with two elite fighters. Wonderful matchup. But as I said, what makes Andrade such a X factor and his problem is, well, his height, him being a southpaw, and controlling that range. So, a guy like Charlo, he would have to pick his poison if he chose to come toward him, because, man, he's a sharpshooter. You're going to get hit. He's going to get out of harm's way, and it's going to be repeat. Now, if Charlo's allows him, Andrade, to come to him, Andrade's going to get in the rhythm real quick, and then you can't do that with Andrade. As I said, the X factor for Charlo will be his punching power. Can he, really, really land those 2 or 3 shots that can be game changers for the fight? Okay? That's how I see it playing out. But this is why they need to fight each other, though, at 160. Because now we'll start to really weed out who's not the man at 160. We gonna really get to the cream of the crop if we have a fight with Canelo and Andrade or Jermall. Now, at the same time, the fight could happen, man. I think it'd be a good time for Eddie Herron to make this happen, because Canelo, they're still in litigation. They're having their issues. They're going through it, trying to get it worked out. How cool would it be for Canelo to face the winner of Andrade and Charlo? Man, it would be already organically homemade. It would have the support. It would have all the fans' attention, and it would really be, I think, a blockbuster fight and truly be an event. So we'll see where he goes at 160. I'm hoping he doesn't, in 3 or 4 months, take a fight that, this guy has no reason of being in the ring with Charlo. I think that will kind of put a distaste in a lot of the boxing community's mouth if that was to transpire. So hopefully Eddie Hearn and Al Heyman, Andrade, and Charlo can come to a resolve and make the fight happen, because trust me, man, not only would I buy it on pay-per-view, I probably would get my plane ticket and head out to wherever they fight if it's, okay. And the pandemic has been lifted and can, view that fight. I feel that strongly about that fight. But everything Sean Porter said, it was spot on, and I really appreciate his judgment and his expertise, how he sees how that fight would play out.
Yeah, now keep in mind, he has not just an observer's point of view. He's also been in the ring as an amateur with Demetrius Andrade, and he admitted, Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade beat him up pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
So he knows exactly what the full Boo Boo arsenal entails, right? Now, here's the biggest problem I see with this. And, the primary issue that Terrence Crawford is currently going through in his career, right, with Heyman pretty much having a monopoly on the great majority of the elite-level talent at 147 pounds, it's been very difficult for TC to get any fights any meaningful fights at welterweight, and he's received a lot of criticism from a lot of fans as well as PBC sympathizers, making claims that, he hasn't fought anyone since moving up to 147 pounds. He's on the wrong side of the street, so to speak. Well, unfortunately for Jermall, he's about to go through that same scenario. It was Demetrius Andrade, as well as Canelo Alvarez, as well as Triple G. They all have contracts to fight on DAZN. The only way I see these, and here's the caveat, though. Unlike Terrence Crawford, Jermall Charlo is technically a free agent. He's not bound contractually to any network or promotional group. It's going to be up to Heyman. Heyman can easily make these fights happen if he gives Jermall the green light and allows him to go fight on these other platforms. Now, we can go ahead and, we have a lot to talk about. We can go ahead and put Canelo off because, honestly, that's the hot fight. Everyone, including the Charlos, want to see Jermall get it on with Canelo Alvarez. Unfortunately, though, and, we're going to get to this a little bit later on in the show, but, Canelo refiled his lawsuit. And after a full day of mediation with Golden Boy Promotions as well as DAZN Brass, this is a lot uglier than we thought because some new wrinkles have come up out of that mediation, and it doesn't look good for Canelo Alvarez and Golden Boy Promotions, right? We'll get into that a little bit later, so let's just put the Canelo option off to the side. But Gennady Golovkin, if I were Jermall Charlo, I would go right after that fight, and I would try to make an example out of Gennady Golovkin, because right now, not only do I favor Jermall Charlo, seeing how he in a very mature manner handled that kind of pressure from Sergey Derevyanchenko, but he was really able to control range for the great majority of the fight. I can actually see him, Rodney, stopping Gennady Golovkin maybe in the mid to late rounds. Now, keep in mind, if this is the same Gennady Golovkin that we saw against Steve Rolls and we saw against Sergey Derevyanchenko, if that guy shows up, I think Jermall actually has a chance of stopping Gennady Golovkin. What are your thoughts on that potential matchup?
Yeah, I believe Jermall hurts him bad, stops him. I truly believe, man, Triple G best days are behind him. Been through several wars, okay? And as I said, when I watch Triple G, he doesn't have like that mystique or that lure that folklore that he once had, okay? Where you felt like, opponents, they were already beat before they even entered in the ring, okay? Mm-hmm. The Triple G now, with all the miles that he has on him, I look for Charlo to knock him out. If Eddie Herron makes a Triple G and Andrade fight, man, look for Boo Boo to pick him apart to death, man. Straight rights, control range, with the jab, the bigger fighter. A real easy fight now for Triple G. I mean, if he was to fight Andrade, I would see him losing, probably out of 12 rounds. He would be lucky to win 3. I truly feel that way at this stage of his career. But, Jermall definitely stops him. And I think right now Triple G is even more tailor-made for Jermall, man. And the way Jermall cuts the ring off, the way he throws punches with bad intentions, he'll find him early and he'll hit him often. And like I say, I think if they do fight, man, maybe shortly after that, man, you will see Triple G start to consider retirement because, man, he's going to take a lot of punishment if that fight truly happens. But as I said, maybe it's a possibility with Canelo really out the loop right now, and those 3 guys, which would be, Triple G, and really Andrade and Jermall. I mean, those to me, that's the cream of the crop in 160, man. I mean, I don't even think it's close, or see how you replace them at this stage of their career. So with that being said, hopefully it's a true incentive for the promotional entities to make those fights happen. But all in all, man, it's just, at 160, Jermall is the man. He's a big 160 as well, too. And he's going to be a tough out for anybody he faces, man. He's going to be a tough out. And if you're not an elite fighter, you're really going to be in for a long night at the office.
Indeed. I love any kind of mix and match of all three of those guys. I would love to just see them get it on right now, while Canelo is, going to be on the shelf. In my projection is he's going to be on the shelf throughout the rest of the year as well as the entire 2021. Unless he actually chooses to resolve this amicably with Golden Boy Promotions, which doesn't look like it right now. Yeah, he's going to be out for at least as long as Andre Ward was while he was trying to get out of his contract with Goose and Tudor Promotions. Even if this goes to arbitration with the California State Athletic Commission, which is, again, it's a clause, a standard clause in the Golden Boy Agreement fighter contract, even if this is thrust onto arbitration with the California State Athletic Commission, I don't see this lasting any shorter than a good year and a half. That's not good. That's not good for boxing. That's not good for Canelo. But while that's going on, I would love to see these guys really generate a huge superstar from a mix and match of all three of those major fights at 160. And, I think it's pretty much at this point up to Boo Boo Andrade and Jermall Charlo. I'm in agreement with you, and I think that's the primary reason why DAZN has been pushing to see Gennady Golovkin fight Canelo Alvarez in one last big event, because I think that's all he's going to have left in the tank, Rodney. And those are my final thoughts on that. So congratulations to Jermall Charlo for scoring a big hit. He is right now the toast of the boxing world at 160. And, it's going to be interesting to see the fans react if Heyman doesn't give Jermall Charlo the green light to move forward on these fan-friendly fights, ones that the fans are clamoring to see right now. It's going to be very interesting to see if Heyman, loosens up on the reins. But, guys, let's move on to the final main event of the evening, and that was Jermall Charlo versus Jason Rosario for the unified 154-pound title or championship. And once again, the titles on the line were Jermall's WBC title and Rosario's WBA and IBF titles. You know what, Rodney? I have to say, I was really impressed that Rosario really showed up and really made things very uncomfortable for Jermall throughout the first 7 rounds of the fight. In fact, I had the fight scored 4 rounds to 3 after 7 for Jason Rosario, but with the knockdowns, it gave him a 1-point lead of 67 to 66. I really enjoyed watching both Charlo brothers test their mettle in this event, and I really enjoyed the way Jermall didn't seem to get frazzled, but Jason Rosario was applying that pressure just like we anticipated and really made things interesting. So let's address the elephant in the room. What were your thoughts on the shocking jab knockout to the solar plexus region?
Well, it's not like we haven't seen that before. I've seen Roy Jones do it several times. If you look back when Bernard Hopkins fought Oscar De La Hoya, I think sometimes the fans, minimize just how hard these guys can hit. Okay, we really don't give them their due. And as I keep saying about the Charlos, you know what? We can say a lot of things about them, but, man, their punching power and their respected weight divisions, you have to really, really acknowledge that and take it very seriously. Hear a lot of guys, oh, he was faking, and, man, look, you can see when that guy touched the canvas, man. He was in severe, deep pain. He wasn't going to respond in no time soon, and thankfully I'm glad that, the fight was stopped and he didn't beat the count, and he could receive medical attention to where maybe he can, lace him up and fight again. But very impressive shot by Jermall. It's reminded me so many times of the great Roy Jones that's done, that exact same punch. And, Rosario just had to be on the wrong end of the punch, man. And it was a great fight up until then. But as I said, that's what makes the Charlos such a problem because, man, they catch you. And it doesn't matter, if they're losing or if it's a close fight. You have to be very, very cognizant that, man, look, they land one time, it could change the whole trajectory of this fight. And I think Rosario was a perfect and prime example of that. So, huge shout to Jermall. As I said, I love the way he conducted himself once the fight was over and the post-fight interviews. I thought he showed a lot of class, a lot of maturity. And even though he's the lineal champ now, he didn't really do it in a braggadocious-like way. I mean, it was very humble, very appreciative of the fans and, his family and his supporters. I left Saturday night with definitely a different impression of the Charlos than I previously had.
Very well stated, Rodney. And, yeah, whether you like them or not, boy, you'd better respect them from this point forward because they're not going away anytime soon. I think we all learned that this past Saturday night. And, yeah, I think the primary reason why both fighters were very humble in victory is because when you listen to them talk afterwards, I don't think either one of them respectively had been in tougher fights throughout their career. Now, obviously, Jermall had two very tough fights, competitive fights with Tony Harrison. And Tony Harrison has a little bit of crack in his shot, and he's a very athletic, tall, rangy guy who can box proficiently. But he doesn't pack the same wallop of a Hasan Rosario. And he doesn't apply that menacing pressure, that constant menacing pressure of Hasan Rosario. And then you look at the other side, Jermall. What he said immediately after the fight spoke volumes. He had a smile on his face, and he said, man, do you remember this, Rodney? He said, man, everything on paper that I read about this guy is 100% man true. This guy can fight. He immediately said that afterwards, and I think the same thing with Hasan Rosario. This was by far their biggest test to date. Both two very, very good fighters in very different styles. But, yeah, they both tested them. And, boy, they passed with flying colors, both Charlo twins. So it's going to be really interesting. Now I pose this same question to you for Jermall Charlo at 154 pounds, Rodney. Who does he fight next that moves the needle? Is anyone interested in seeing a rematch with the now very gun-shy and very tentative Erickson Lubin? Does anyone want to see? Does anyone want to see also J-Rock, Julian Williams coming off of a loss? I don't know if that fight produces any kind of, pay-per-view merit, to be honest with you. Erislandy Lara at this stage of his career, I don't know if that's pay-per-view worthy, and I don't know if the fight is as competitive as it would have been, say, Lara in his prime. I don't know if it's as competitive right now. So who does he fight at 154? I know there's the WBO title holder that's currently signed with Golden Boy, Patrick Teixeira, who recently called him out. But to be honest with you, I don't even see that fight Teixeira being competitive. Teixeira has absolutely zero defense, and he's there to be hit. He squares up against his opposition. And to be honest with you, I think he's fortunate to even have a version of the 154-pound title. So who does he fight at 154 pounds? In my opinion, Rodney, I think the most interesting fight, and once again, we heard from Derevyanchenko's handlers afterwards saying, you know what, I think the 160-pound weight division is just too big for this man. We're going to take some time off, and we're going to see if we can make weight at 154 pounds. In my opinion, Jermall Charlo versus Sergey Derevyanchenko is the best matchup you can make outside of a rubber match with Tony Harrison. What are your thoughts? Who should he fight next, my friend?
Well, you don't have a lot of quality to choose from or candidates to choose from at 154. Now, as I said, he has all the belts, but, Al Heyman is going to have a hard time trying to justify having fight Erickson Lubin again. I think as his star power is ascending, I think if you start recycling those matches, then you're going to get another lull. You're not going to really carry on with your momentum that you just gained. So they're going to have a real problem, man. It's just not a quality opponent out there for, like you say, to really move the needle, to really captivate the boxing world attention. And, once these guys go on pay-per-view, I'm quite naturally they're going to probably want to have their next fight on pay-per-view. And you're going to have to put somebody that's going to be a dance partner that's going to be worthy of that. As far as Triple G, going back to 154, I'm sure if that does happen, they're going to be mindful. Well, he fought his brother at 160. Got his, he didn't fight Triple G at 160, but again, he's leaving 160 after maybe a loss, depending on who Triple G fights next. I don't know if he plans on going to 154 or his next fight, but as I said, I can see him losing his next fight at 160 if he fight one of the elite fighters. If he goes back to 154 to try to recycle and kind of reinvent himself, as I said, I'm not really clear or for certain how that's going to pass over with boxing fans. Because as I said, Triple G at one time, man, he was the boogeyman. He had the lure. He was called the good boy. He just had this fascination that was carried with him. I don't see that anymore. I think people have really come to expect he's a lot more human now. Maybe that might be, but that might be the best pet. That might be the best, answer or, at the current time.
So you're actually thinking of, unfortunately, Gennady Golovkin, he's not even entertaining the idea at his age, trying to melt down and make 54. I was referring to Sergey Derevyanchenko, cutting weight, trying to make 54. And obviously he's going to want to test the waters first before he jumps into a huge battle with Jermall Charlo. So my guess is that in the interim, Heyman is going to stage a rubber match with Tony Superbad Harrison. That fight makes sense. They both won. The rubber match makes sense right now. And then if Sergey Derevyanchenko looks good in his first fight at 54, I like the matchup between Derevyanchenko and Jermall Charlo, seeing the problems that Jermall had with guys applying consistent pressure. I love that matchup, and it's going to be interesting. And I'm not so sure, Rodney, that we see this same outcome as Jermall versus Sergey. I think it's a much more challenging fight for Jermall Charlo, and I think that's the best matchup you could possibly make right now at 154 pounds.
Yeah, that I mean, this will be an interesting development if that, tends to materialize and they chose to go that route. So, as I said, you can package it. I think it won't be an issue of trying to sell it to the fans. And it's a sturdy test for Jermall, and it gives them something to fight for in that division, because there's not a lot out there to where they should be really entertaining. So if he's able to come down, that's great. Again, man, Devonchenko is a small 160, man. I mean, you can see that when he fought Jermall. The size difference was just so apparent. Go to 154, maybe, he can still keep his power. He has his boxing skills. Again, he's starting to cut a little bit often now when he fights. I definitely would still favor Jermall. He's a little bit more of a fresher fighter. It would be a good fight, and I think it will continue to, enhance definitely the Jermall's brand and, justify him having all the belts at 154. So you got to do what you got to do to make these matches, especially when you don't have the quality of opponents, in that division. And it's going to be a good problem to have because, like I say, he's done what he needed to do to put himself in that position. But ultimately, he has to fight again, and whoever he fights, it has to gravitate towards the public to where they can buy his fights, tune in, and continue to work on his mass appeal and star power.
Yeah, very good. So we look forward to the very bright future of both Charlo twins. So congratulations to both Jermall and Jermall for coming up big this past Saturday night. Now, Rodney, we're going to have to move forward with Canelo because something very interesting happened yesterday, right? It looks like Canelo Alvarez, his attorneys refiled the breach of contract lawsuit against DAZN, Golden Boy, and Oscar De La Hoya, and this is not good news for boxing fans or the sport of boxing, for the health of the sport. Now, from what I've been told, right, this is a mess. This is even worse than we thought. With the information that was released based on the mediation session that took place this past Friday, there's a problem with the contracting between Golden Boy and Canelo and Golden Boy and DAZN. Apparently, we just discovered that Canelo doesn't officially have a contract with DAZN. So more than likely, this lawsuit's going to eventually get thrown out. But then we look at Golden Boy Promotions. Apparently, it was discovered, and this is a real head scratcher, Rodney. In business, when you have an LLC, would you ever be foolish enough, Rodney, to sign a personal guarantee for $360 million regarding a $365 million contract? Because apparently that's what Oscar De La Hoya just did. Like, what's the point of even having a limited liability corporation? You've just made yourself personally liable for the remaining amount on Canelo's contractual agreement. So he personally guaranteed. Now, once again, this is just in the plaintiff's affidavit. According to what attorneys discovered after reviewing the contracts, Oscar De La Hoya is now the personal guarantor for $280 million remaining on Canelo's contract. That changes everything dramatically. And then looking at the DAZN contract, right? Apparently, it was Oscar and Golden Boy's responsibility to pay Canelo, not DAZN's. Wow. Apparently, this is a service contract, right? Oscar signed a personal guarantee promising 2 fights a year with a minimum guarantee of $35 million for the 10 fights. Canelo, well, he provided his end of the deal, and it boils down to Golden Boy didn't live up to their end of the deal. In fact, they blamed this on DAZN, which very well might be the case, but right now, according to the plaintiff's affidavit, Golden Boy is on the hook for this. They're the ones in breach of contract, specifically Oscar De La Hoya. So now what Canelo's pushing for is not only a separation to get out of his contract, but he wants, and technically on a legal standpoint, he is entitled now for the entire accelerated amount on this contract, thanks to Goldie signing a personal guarantee.
Man.
So, and once again, your thoughts on this, Rodney, before I move forward with any of this, because this is a lot to digest, brother.
Yeah, it truly is a lot. But as I said, weeks ago when you first asked me, I think we're going to see Canelo before the end of the year. I gave you my opinion. I also said this is a very messy squabble they're having. And as you can see, I think when it's all said and done, things will never be quite the same. I truly believe that. I don't know how these guys will mend the fences going forward. Now, as I said, man, it's a real problem because anytime that you're on the hook for $500 million, man, especially in the state that boxing is in, that's a lot of pressure on an entity or a promotional company to, uphold that. That's a massive responsibility, So, as I said, man, this is has a lot of layers, a lot of, intricacies that's involved with DAZN, Golden Boy, and Canelo. I just don't. As I said, man, I don't see it ending amicably. I think it's going to be a bitter split with all three parties involved, and it's going to be interesting to see where Canelo lands on his feet after this and get the type of money that he currently had signed up for with this contract. So, it's not a good look for the sport, and this can carry on to well into next year, Joseph, in 2021. Once they continue to get all their lawyers involved and just the back and forth of just the complexity of the contract and so many moving parts, yeah, this has truly given the sport a black eye, in my opinion. And I don't want to really comment too much on the legalities of it. I'm going to keep it just the fact that Canelo's not fighting. A guy that he's so good for the sport, Joseph. He brings such a organic energy when he fights. He gets the everybody, attention, and he was a star. He truly was, especially in Northern America and in Mexico. He was the biggest thing. And for him not to be involved in boxing for the current or the very near time in the future, man, that's not good for the sport. And as I said, I think it's gonna, when it's all said and done and the smoke clear, it's gonna be a nasty, bitter split and come to an end for all those three entities, I truly believe.
Yeah, so now the big question is, because obviously Canelo, well, time is on his side. He's currently in the prime of his career, but he's young enough where his career and his brand can survive a year on the shelf. the question now evolves into a very, very serious quandary for Golden Boy Promotions. Will they make it through this without someone who generated and accounted for 94% of Golden Boy's gross annual income? According to Forbes, that was the number for 2019. And what does that mean for all other 80 active fighters on their roster? Will they survive this, Rodney? If you had to make a prognostication, do you think Golden Boy makes it out of this, or do you think Oscar, being the buffoon who signed a personal guarantee, do you think he just goes belly up and files bankruptcy?
Well, you can already see the writing on the wall. That's why he's kind of put it out there that he's thinking about returning to the sport. Those are all money moves, man. Golden Boy is cash strapped. They have a lot of fighters, don't have a lot of dates, okay? For them to lose Canelo, the staple, the flagship, the centerpiece of their franchise, I don't see how they recover from. Because, again, you not only have a star, but you have a pay-per-view star, someone who's willing to shell out $100 to see him fight, okay? Someone who's willing to go to Vegas for 2 or 3 days to go see him fight and be a part of those historic events. You lose something like that, you have no contingency plan. Don't get me wrong. I like Virgil Ortiz. I like Leo Santa Cruz, and a host of other fighters that they have. But guys like Canelo Alvarez don't grow on trees, okay? So if he signs that, if he pretty much signed his life away and gave his company a death wish by signing those documents, I think it's a very, very good chance, like you say, he's headed to the bankruptcy line, and maybe try to salvage what he can as far as his business and his finances, because he's going to be bleeding money, man. I mean, right now, as I said, to pay Canelo, man, it's a heavy, heavy price, and it has to be utilized and really put Canelo in a position to where he's truly making his money and making Golden Boy money, and then satisfying the zone. And like my grandpa says, sometimes you can bite off more than you can chew. And I think if they had to do it all over again, Joseph, there's no way they would have signed Canelo to that type of money. No freaking way. And you know what? I think this man didn't call up with him and is biting him in the behind. And it's going to be tough to rebound from this, though.
Yeah, I'm with you, Rodney. I don't see it ending well for Golden Boy Promotions. And I'll say this again. I've stated this numerous times since his story broke. This would not be happening currently if Golden Boy still had the efforts of Richard Schaefer and the late great Don Chargan. This wouldn't have happened. They are in a serious mess, and it doesn't look good. We'll see what happens when this gets thrown out of court and gets pushed to arbitration. But, as of right now, I don't think Canelo has a genuine grievance with DAZN. This is all about the mishandling of this situation with Golden Boy Promotions. That's where the real grievance, and that's where the lawsuit lies. So we'll see what happens, but it's not looking good for Golden Boy. If I were one of their fighters, I'd be looking to jump ship sooner rather than later. I think Golden Boy should do the right thing if they can't work things out with Canelo and just release all of their fighters and file bankruptcy. Wow. Can you believe we're actually talking about this? Golden Boy filing bankruptcy. My word.
Yep. Crazy.
Unbelievable. I tell you what, we're running out of time. I do have to bring up one last thing. Let's get your thoughts on one final issue very quickly. Well, it was leaked out on a tweet this past Friday that Conor McGregor was going to be fighting Manny Pacquiao, but then looks like Mikey Garcia is insisting 100% he is going to be Manny Pacquiao's next opponent. Rodney, your thoughts? I mean, honestly, which one do you think Manny Pacquiao fights next? Obviously, the fight taking place is going to be contingent on whether or not they can have a live gate. Let's just put that out there. But if you were Manny Pacquiao's advisor, knowing as much as you do about the business of boxing, would you feel much better about your superstar client stepping in the ring with Conor McGregor or Mikey Garcia at age 42?
You know what? If I'm advising Pacquiao and I'm doing it from a dollars and cents perspective, then it's Conor McGregor. You know, if I know that my days are numbered in the fighting game, here's a guy, Manny Pacquiao, who has mismanaged his money. Reports is that, not saying he's, in the soup kitchen line, but he clearly doesn't have the money that he earned throughout his illustrious career. Okay. At this point, his legacy, his boxing legacy is intact. First ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest fighters, not only in our area, but I just think in the history of the sport of boxing. He has nothing really to prove, to the boxing world. To see him fight Mikey Garcia now, you would have to put it on pay-per-view. I don't think it would do the type of numbers that Pacquiao was accustomed to doing when he fought on pay-per-view. And that even gives me more reason to believe that his handlers are going to push him toward the Conor McGregor fight and hope for even a third of the success that Floyd and Conor McGregor had. So, as I said, if I was, betting my house note, I would say he would fight Conor McGregor next.
I think you're absolutely right. I think Mikey Garcia, not only has he infamously become a pain in the ass to negotiate and to work with, he's living in fantasy land. For some strange reason, he thinks he is this box office draw, and he's not. He's an elite-level talent, absolutely. He's one of the best fighters in boxing. But even going back to his days being cultivated as a top-ranked superstar and getting on HBO, getting multiple titles in multiple divisions, he has never been a box office draw. I've seen him several times, and he always has trouble, even in a heavy populated Hispanic area. He has problems selling tickets. So, again, Top Rank put him on ice because he was a huge pain in the ass to work with. And my guess is that they're going to go with the lesser of two evils, which I think is Conor McGregor, only because, and once again, they know that he's a pain in the ass also. Look at the current quandary that he's and the dispute he's going head-to-head with Dana White and UFC currently. Both guys are prima donnas, but you go with the prima donna who's worth more money and who's a bigger box office draw. And to be honest with you, he is a much, much easier fight than Mikey Garcia. At age 42, I'm taking on the novice boxer worth a $100 million fight. Mikey Garcia, make no mistake about this, guys, is a very tough outing and a terrible style matchup for Manny Pacquiao. You're talking about one of the more prolific counterpunchers at 35 and 40, and he's got some serious crack in his shot. Manny doesn't need him. Manny shouldn't just turn the other way and focus on fighting Mr. Lucky Charms. I think you're absolutely right about that, Rodney. We're way over time, brother. Final thoughts? Do you have any final thoughts on this weekend's big fight on Top Rank on ESPN Plus? Ivan Baranchyk versus Jose Cepeda in a 10-round main event at super lightweight. Keep in mind, Ivan Baranchyk, his only loss is to Josh Taylor. There's no shame in that. And Jose Cepeda, boy, he looked tremendous in beating up Jose Pedraza last year. And his only loss is to, his most recent loss, I should say, is to Jose Ramirez. Once again, no shame in that. So this is pretty much a fight to see who moves forward for championship title contention. Who wins this fight? This is a great all-action style matchup at pretty much even odds. Jose Zepeda versus Ivan Baranchyk, and once again, Top Rank does it again, brother. This is going to be an all-action great fight and an even money matchup. So flip a coin, Rodney. Who wins this, Jose Zepeda or Ivan Baranchyk?
Even money fight for the most part. I'm going to take Zepeda, Joseph.
Well, I tell you what, man. The way he looked in his last two fights against Jose Pedraza and Kendo Castañeda, yeah, he's going to give Ivan Baranchyk everything he can handle, but oh boy. Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one, Rodney. The former IBF title holder. I can see it playing out either way, though, but the beast from Belarus, I think, is victorious in this one. But I think both fighters are at the point of their careers where you're not going to see a knockout, but, guys, you are going to see a barn burner on Top Rank or on ESPN+. So, guys, tune into that this Saturday night. And, hey, Rodney, can you believe we are only 2.5 weeks away from seeing Teofimo Lopez versus Vasyl Lomachenko? Your parting shots, and, boy, tell us how you feel about that one, man.
Man, subsequently, just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you guys enjoyed some boxing this weekend, and I can't emphasize enough to continue to support the sport so we can continue to have these events. And you're right, Teofimo and Vasyl Lomachenko are on the horizon. And, man, I'm just going to say this. I will give my opinion a little bit as the fight gets near. I will definitely express to you how I see the fight playing out and who's going to win. But at this point, man, I'm just saying I'm excited, and best believe somebody's going to get hit when they square off.
Guys, he's Rodney Green. You can hear him every single week on Boxing 411. Guys, but that's going to just about do it. We want to thank everyone for tuning in. And remember, please go visit FightSaga.com as well as Box.Buzz, B-U-Z-Z, for all the latest boxing news. And on behalf of Rodney Green, my name is Joseph Herron. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Have a great evening.